Normally in games, you play the hero. You rarely play as the villain, at least explicitly. There are plenty of RPGs where you can turn heel and act like a maniac, but that's not really what we're talking about here. With this video, we're aiming for the times when you really are a bad guy right from the outset, or maybe those times where you aren't really clear that you are one, but the truth is revealed at the very end. Whatever the case, with evil playing such a big role in a lot of games, it is occasionally a lot of fun when you actually get a chance to wear the big bad boy pants for once. Hi folks, today in this video, 15 games where you're the bad guy. Let's kick off this list with Carrion. Now, with some of these entries, there are essential spoilers, like we kind of got to reveal the reveal of the game that you're actually the bad guy or whatever. Here with these earlier ones, it's a little bit more straightforward. So Carrion is a pretty simple, straightforward game, right? You're a big, creepy blob and you want to escape, and anyone who gets in your way will really, really wish they didn't. The entire game is about fleeing, but the game is called a reverse horror game because for once, you're the monster. The actual horror of this game is making it out alive instead of being shredded to bits. In terms of narrative excitement, it's kind of the opposite of games like Outlast, where it's about escaping a gory death from something grotesque, but only this time, you're the one dismembering all the defenseless scientists. You're not some noble creature, you're a mindless killer. The scientists are probably doing some kind of shady stuff and they kind of deserve a little comeuppance for their actions, but honestly, probably not to the extent where we go in this game.
The minions of war, because evil always finds a way.
Coming up next, at least with Overlord 2, you have some choice. You can either be evil or really evil. You're playing as the Overlord, an evil ruler of the underworld commanded by an army of orcs, goblins, and other assorted nasties, and it's your job to, well, take over the world. In the original game, you have more of a choice in how evil you want to be versus how good. But in the sequel, you're more fully committed to the badness and really only just decide how evil to be. Do you want to kill every villager you see or enslave them? Obviously, the more evil choice would be enslavement because the villagers slowly die if they're enslaved in addition to building up your army with zombie followers. Probably the most evil thing you're doing is raising an army of unkillable slaves to take over the world. This game's strange take on things is that, it's funny and quirky and you almost never do anything super horrifying, at least not directly. There's nothing that happens that you don't see in a typical RTS or an RPG, really. But just that you sending in an army of goblins with murder on your mind instead of justice makes the carnage stand out a little bit more. Sometimes it's nice to pretend to be bad, and Overlord 2 makes it easy, I guess because your army is made out of such goofy goblins. They're so over the top and silly that it's hard to really take anything you're doing here too seriously.
Sit down. I see another one.
Next up, this one's a little bit more fun. Stubbs the Zombie and Rebel Without a Pulse is another game where you are very much the bad guy. You're playing as a rotting, undead corpse. That means wiping out the human population and recruiting lots of new zombies for your army just by, getting people to eat brains. Stubbs is actually another pretty straightforward plotline. You are a zombie, everyone else is a human trying to stop you. Those pesky humans are right in this case though. You're the deadly human-hating monster. No matter how cute your green guts are, you're still a horror show on wheels and you're not friendly. Wiping out police forces, waves of the National Guard, and all sorts of other enemies. Yeah, it's fun. The whole game is presented like a love story from the undead perspective, but don't get it twisted, Stubbs is undeniably bad whenever he goes, whether it's just in a good mood or he gets angry. The thing is, the game is charming as hell. It's extremely stupid and funny in a way that makes you kind of forget how monumentally evil the main character is. Still, in a game where you command hordes of undead, use their limbs as weapons, and blow up gas stations full of schmucks, and then send out your zombie wave, deep down you kind of know that you're the villain here. Next up, Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2 is one of those major spoilers. If you haven't played this game and you're interested, you might want to skip this because it's a big one. When you play as the mighty Gabriel Belmont in Castlevania Lords of Shadow, you probably don't feel like a big bad guy at all. You're climbing massive titans, slaying supernatural foes, and trying to bring the mask back together to save the world. The final twist, though, reveals Gabriel becomes a new vampire lord, Dracula. I consider this a prequel to every Castlevania game because this is a self-contained series. So, spoilers be damned, and today we're talking more specifically about Lords of Shadow 2. But in this one, you're fully Dracula. You've renounced your old humanity, and now you're just trying to stop Satan. But to the rest of the world, you're still a pretty dangerous foe. Satan wants revenge, sending forth an army of monsters to attack the modern world, so you do get to kind of be good still. I guess there are two sides to the storyline here, where you play as Dracula. Even if you're stopping Satan, you're as evil as they come. By the end of Lords of Shadow 2, you've basically become an anti-hero who protects his family and fights the good fight, but the people you're protecting would probably disagree with any of this. They're probably scared shitless of you. They're probably going to have a hard time believing that the bloodthirsty evil Lord of Demons is on their side, but in Lords of Shadow 2, for a brief moment, you're kind of on the good side. Well, sort of, but not really.
What are you doing here? Why aren't you at the big to-do at the Longhouse?
Yeah, I just didn't feel all that accomplished tonight, but you look amazing. It looks great on you. Seriously.
Next on the list is Infamous Second Son. This sequel to Infamous has a much clearer distinction between the good and bad sides that you can choose. With the original Infamous games, you can decide to be good or evil, two extremes you can take with the story on branching paths. But in Second Son, you'll be making choices that define your path. And really, no matter what choices you make, you're still kind of a brat that wreaks havoc on the streets of Seattle. You can choose to fight the traffic cops, which is the good option, or murder them, which is the evil option. But fundamentally, you're still an idiot causing civil unrest in a major US city. No matter what you do, you're taking the law into your own hands. The choice is whether you're a little stinker or go full-on psycho. Every major choice in Second Son is pretty understandable, slightly bad, and then really, really bad. But there's also something else about the game that's unique in the series. On the evil path, your character takes on a darker appearance, with his jacket shifting to a more menacing black and red design and his powers glowing with a chaotic red hue in the villain cutscenes. As the tone grows darker, his face becomes more self-assured and determined as he embraces his destructive choices. Most games don't really make it clear when you're taking the dark path, but in Infamous Second Son, there's really no question. Some of the choices are so dastardly, you'd have to be a true monster in real life to do something like that. But still, even on the good path, the main protagonist is still basically acting like a little bit of a nuisance to society. Next up, we have the Prototype series. Now, the simple truth is that in Prototype and Prototype 2, you're the monster, you're the bad guy. No matter how much you try to reframe events, Alex Mercer is responsible for the monster-filled streets of New York. It's his fault. He did it. He's the problem here. Prototype starts at the end of the game, showing our hero absorbing what looks like a helpless soldier to recover from wounds, and it only gets worse from there. You're a dangerous monster that infects the entire city and mutates into a Lovecraftian horror. The most worrying part is how little Alex Mercer seems to care. You're a normal protagonist, but the death of thousands of innocents does not stop you from ripping helicopters out of the sky or murdering everyone that stands in your way. The good news is that it kind of innately makes you a good protagonist for this type of game. It's an open-world game where you cause ruckus, carnage, and destruction, and you're kind of rewarded for it. That kind of lives up to the fact knowing that you're not a great guy. The sequel doesn't make things any better. You're a second virus that spawns from Alex Mercer, making everything even worse. You're mostly killing evil military bad guys, which kind of washes away your sins, I guess. But the primary difference between something like Prototype and the aforementioned Infamous is the amount of care given to all the civilians. There are none here. The moral question isn't even brought up, and Prototype knew the question didn't even need to be asked. The answer is yes. The hero is certainly a massive, massive villain here. He looks great doing it though. The game was cool for its time.
Mr. Whitmer, thank you for coming on such short notice. A great tragedy has fallen upon us, and I need a quick resolution, handled with absolute discretion.
Next on the list, this one might depend on who you ask, but the Hitman games, for all its silly disguises and goofy hijinks, you're a tried and true monster. You're a purpose-built, remorseless agent of death, built from birth to exit from the shadows and eliminate a target, no matter the cost. You're the ultimate bad dude. Even if you're stopping some famously evil people, you can't deny that Agent 47 is still a bad guy. He's emotionless and he kills for money, usually taking down countries from the inside out. And then there's the National Guard and the civilians, all the extra people you mow down on your mission to assassinate your intended target, either dressed like a genie and poisoned by food, or I don't know, just a person in a crowd and you throw a screwdriver at someone's head. Of course, I'm just painting a bad picture here for argument's sake. You can choose to play Hitman however you want. You don't have to feel bad. You don't have to kill every man, woman, child in the room at any given moment. That's your choice. Some of my best runs were when I just meticulously took out my target, totally undetected, and got out of there without a single person knowing a thing, and those are the best. Realistically, though, no matter what ends justify the means, when you kind of stop and really sort of think about it, Agent 47, even if he's a hero, would be considered a very, very bad man. Now over at number 8, Vampire. This one, you kind of know right from the start. It's the name of the game, Vampire, the Victorian horror RPG that puts you firmly on the back foot in this vampire versus humans battle. You're a newly born vampire and you're being hunted by vampire hunters the entire adventure. You're a doctor, but even if you swear to do no harm, you're still a vampire. And then, by definition, that kind of makes you a bad guy. Staying alive in this game is rough. You're better suited drinking blood when you're a little low to keep up the good fight. Vampires don't normally choose their victims, and that's what's unique about this game. You sort of have a choice whether to defend the people of London or to completely give in to your vampire nature and become an occultic nightmare. Feeding on people gives you tons of XP, and it's great for early grinding, but at the cost of making later battles more difficult because there are fewer people to protect. Your actions have consequences big time in Vampire. Killing too many humans makes vampire hunters more persistent, causing more tragedy and turmoil, and making the world grow progressively darker, which, yeah, is actually really cool. The point is that even if you're protected by an ancient order that's trying to protect the secret vampire society here, you're still the enemy of humanity. Even if you're a little Nightwing Robin Hood, like stealing a little bit of blood here and there and then ripping out the throats of all the vampires and vampire hunters you can find, you're still ultimately a villain, even if you kind of don't want to be.
Admit it, I nearly had you.
Next up, we have Assassin's Creed Rogue. If you've been playing Assassin's Creed for the last, decade plus, you clearly know the score. There are the good assassins and the bad Templars. They're good, they're right, they're in the right. Except in this one, you're on the other side. You're the Templar. Shay Patrick Cormac, the hero of Assassin's Creed Rogue, is a member of that latter faction of Templars, but he's a defector. It turns out he was once an assassin. The game explains how he fights his former allies, explaining why the Templars are actually the good guys all along and you were secretly right. You're still a cryptic, suit-wearing, cult-like figure that operates outside the law, but in this case, it's actually for the good of humanity, fighting for peace and stability against a rogue terrorist cell masquerading as cool hoodie-wearing assassins. It's all about your perspective, I guess. But then again, I don't know, because the Templars have been doing some pretty evil stuff in all the other games. The whole good guy, bad guy dynamic is flipped on its head here, which is why I think it deserves at least a mention here. You're not really a good guy. The script tries pretty hard to justify current events, but your character really just looks like a fool, even if his code is pretty cool. It's hard to really make you a good guy here.
Conducting experiments in the Furon mothership.
Now next, Destroy All Humans is another one of those games where, well, duh, of course you're the bad guy. You are a kooky, crazy alien landing on Earth, hell-bent on turning everything into ash and just wiping out the crusty, stupid human race. A little bit more specifically, we're focusing on one of the remakes here, or reboots, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, technically in the newer games, like Destroy All Humans 2 Reprobed, you sort of switch sides, kind of. You're still a spacefaring alien that literally looks like the aliens depicted in mid-century, mid-20th century human horror sci-fi movies. You've arrived, looked around, and decided that you want to just blow up everyone in Bay City and beyond. In the sequel, you're fighting the KGB and occasionally clashing with the US government. But can we really call that good? Are we really good guys for that? I'm gonna say they're bad guys. Everyone's pretty bad here. In your first adventure, this Furon warrior didn't mind actually destroying the entire human race. But in the sequel, you're a little more merciful and more focused on getting back at some Soviets. The bad guys rely on date and time and perspective, but in mid-20th century USA, aliens are bad. All bad aliens are bad, and they want to turn the world into a soup. But you know, still just stopping the Russians doesn't quite make you good. You're definitely the bad guy.
What the hell's going on here?
Vito!
You mind your business, asshole. Oh, yeah? Yeah?
Next up, we have Mafia 2. This one is much more of a simpler example compared to the layered storylines of other classic crime games. Mafia 2 doesn't show you exactly how much of a bad guy Vito Scaletta is right from the start. Instead, it gradually reveals his descent into crime. You start the game as a soldier in World War II, and you fight in a European village, and your actions kind of give you a glimpse of what's to come. After that, you return home to Empire Bay after being wounded, not pulling a hide-in-a-box escape and running roughshod over the countryside. Those events don't happen. The tutorial level introduces Vito's struggles and moral ambiguity, not explicitly showing him as a fundamentally bad man from the start. You're a full criminal in Part 2, the worst of the worst if you're a purist. Even in crime stories, there are people you don't attack like civilians and vagrants and people down on their luck. Those kinds of people are usually protected by criminals, but not in Mafia 2. There's a huge gunfight in a brothel, things end up in tragedy, and many of the people you end up killing in Mafia 2 are indeed criminals or rivals, not just losers on the bottom rung of society. Just because you're fighting an entire Chinatown crew or a gang of deranged Irish psychopaths doesn't mean you're the good guy here. Vito is a dark character on a dark, dark path. Next on the list, Man-Eater is kind of going to be an obvious one because, it's the shark game. How could you not be the villain in this one? I mean, I guess maybe if you talk to actual, anti-shark people. Sharks are majestic ocean creatures, force-fed with terrible PR jobs throughout the decades by pop culture. But if you're one of those, this one probably angers you. But the game is fantastic. Man-Eater is a great game because it flips that monstrous shark narrative completely on its head for, its own joke. You play as the legendary Man-Eater, a gigantic apex predator that has nothing but hunger on its mind. And playing as this shark, you destroy, kill, and consume literally everything in your path. You start really small, you barely have the jaw strength to take down a single shark, but by the end of the game, you'll become a macabre mutant with gnarly teeth and a relentless hatred for humans everywhere. In Man-Eater, you'll need to scare people to draw the hunters out. The more humans you topple with your big frickin' shark head, the more famous you'll become. Famous as a murderer, in any other context, you'd be stopping this monster, but in Man-Eater, you're the monster, and the goofiest part is that everybody loves you for it. The game doesn't give the world the proper fear you'd expect if there was an actual enormous Man-Eater. The cavalier attitude of the hunters is just another extension of these already dumb parody levels here of this stuff, and that's what makes the game so much fun. Next up, it's Untitled Goose Game. Now this one is a little bit different to the chaos that Man-Eater gives you. There is no blood and definitely no killing here. Still, there's something undeniably evil about everything you do in the Untitled Goose Game. You're not a mobster or a killer in this one, you're just a goose in a little neighborhood, going around and doing what geese do, wreaking havoc on humanity if you're near it. The stuff you do in this game is just mostly pranks, it's just harmless. Even by game standards where you do things like lock a kid in a phone booth, it's pretty light, it doesn't really seem like you're hurting anyone, but you're not helping anyone either, you're causing mayhem wherever you go. But look, why fight it? There's something that's really satisfying and kind of wonderful in a backhand way about just causing trouble in this small village. The actual act isn't evil, but look at the intent. You're never really actively helping anyone in this game. Like, when you fistfight cops in GTA, it's pretty obvious that you're literally being evil. What you're doing isn't necessarily bad, but the glee you're taking in causing ruckus is shadowy as hell. Next up is the God of War series. To just couch it with a little bit of nuance here, the 2018 game in Ragnarok, Kratos does some questionable things, but the way he's portrayed in both of those games, he's more of a guy looking for redemption, trying to repent for all the bad shit he did in the previous games. God of War 2018 and Ragnarok are awesome, but they're not essential to this list. You know who is? The bladed killer himself, going on ripping and tearing through hordes of Greek soldiers and mythological creatures. And evil, heartless gods, that's right. I'm talking everything before 2018, like the entire series. Kratos is bad news, he's a clear villain. He starts out as a troubled hero, he protects people wherever he goes, but by the midpoint of the first game, the gods make him a joke and he starts cutting his way through every divine being he can get his hands on. For vengeance, pure rage, on a completely misguided path for justice, just going around doing bad things. He plunges the world into endless darkness. When he kills the god of the sun, he floods the planet by killing Poseidon, sinks all of Greece into the ocean. All the death and destruction left in his wake is an afterthought. And so many different examples of him doing bad things and taking things way out of control we're not even going to get into here on this list. But let's be real, for the most of the series, Kratos is a bad man. You know, sure, the gods deserve some revenge, but humans and everybody else remember his wrath too, you know? Kratos is doing what's best for Kratos. He isn't a friend to anyone else, at least not really. Well, you know what? I gotta stop myself here. You know, God of War, we could talk about him and his morals and what he does all day long. You know, he's a complicated dude. Now finally, we have The Last of Us Part 2, specifically Abby's whole playthrough. Look, I think this whole structure is kind of brilliant here. In The Last of Us Part 2, we play as Ellie on a path of vengeance and destruction, killing dozens and dozens of evil soldiers in a world without many moral people left. We're fighting to defeat the WLF, which was already portrayed as a pretty horrible group in Seattle, but then halfway through the game, it just hard stops cold turkey and switches. We play as Abby, who is another WLF member. That's a lot to process. Instead of fighting the main antagonistic force, you're just all of a sudden part of it, killing enemies that are Ellie's friends. The playthrough makes Ellie look like a bad guy and Abby look like a good guy. But when you stop and think about it, this is a trick on the player's mind. We're all bad guys here. Abby gets her chance for revenge, killing all of Ellie's friends, and Ellie gets her revenge, killing all of Abby's friends. Both sides are bad. Just because we're experiencing the perspective of each character doesn't mean they aren't villains to each other. If anything, they're both monsters. And the game is kind of about realizing the flaws in each character after playing as them and realizing they're awful people who need to grow. It ends on a pretty low note. Nothing is really even close to a happy ending here. All we really know is that both characters are still alive, for now.